right, all right, all right. Okay, we're gonna step out of that wheelhouse just a little bit. Yes, I usually talk about true crime or court cases and that kind of thing. I did though listen to an interesting live that I enjoyed, and they were talking about narcissism, the development of empathy, and um, sociopathy versus psychopathy. And I've kind of talked about this a couple of times in the past. Just occasionally it comes up, and I do think it's completely applicable to the topic of crime, criminal behavior. Normally, criminal behavior, at the very least, includes the exploitation of others. And then that exploitation uh, can develop into full blown loss of life, attack on livelihood, interfering with survival of another human being. And so that is one of the reasons why people that talk about true crime genre, um, they inevitably will run into these questions of narcissism, psychopathy, sociopathy, and then the characteristics and behaviors that we see with each of those. Um, I thought that the conversation that I was listening to, um, I think this is a good that's a good one, right? Because we kind of talk. A lot of people have asked, where these two are concerned. What would you say about them? Like, where do they fit into this psychopathy, sociopathy, antisocial PD, um, uh, narcissistic personality disorder, and then, of course, there's borderline. Um, and so a lot of people, have looked at this question of Lori and Chad Daybell and been, curious about the mental health of each. Now, I'm not saying that either of these people actually have narcissistic personality disorder or any other, but I think that most professionals would agree that a lot of the behavior, lifestyle choices, actions that these two took would be consistent with the diagnostic criteria that are in the DSM. So, so yeah, this is not an unrelated topic in terms of true crime. We do know that a great percentage of people that are in prison will test out and qualify for a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder or borderline. And in fact, these three specific personality disorders, they are very often the people that are behaving in criminal ways. They are people that are driven by a mindset and a constellation of personality factors that set them up to, number one, develop the mindset, come up with a scheme that they can defraud others, and then the lack of empathy and the sense of personal agency can actually drive them into acting out the destructive behaviors for exploitation. Can I just say it? Stealing from other people. And so these, in particular, these types of personality disorders, borderline, narcissistic, and antisocial, um, these people have the characteristics internally that allow them to perceive of the scam, the fraud, and then to actually execute, to engage in the actual scam, and then to walk away without a care in the world, no corrective emotion at all, no embarrassment, no shame, no humiliation, zero, no guilt. They don't care that they just robbed you of your hard earned money. They don't care. If you can engage these people in conversation, very often you cannot, because they sort of look down on you, that you are beneath them, that they are special, that they are smarter than you are, because they have figured out how to take other people's money without working hard, whereas you're still the poor sap who believes that you got to get out there and earn a living. So, same way with like infidelities, they'll have affairs with with married people, and then they say, why would I feel guilty about screwing around with a married man and who has 3, 4, 5 children? I don't feel guilty. I'm not the one that had the wedding vows. Um, but in fact, healthy women or men, um, we recognize, even if we're single, married people are not appropriate dating partners. And the reason they're not appropriate dating partners is because there's children that can be hurt. There's a family unit that will be destroyed while you're just having some fun dating. And so healthy people don't typically get involved with married people because that is an exploitative relationship. People have to be harmed so that you can, have your fun. So, so I thought, why not talk a little bit about this, even though we're primarily true crime? We do have some interesting cases going on right now. For example, Debbie Collier. It would appear that there are some players, some actors in this crime that kind of carry some of these characteristics. And you and I are looking at this story and we're going, "Oh my God, that's the mother." Of course you're not going to do something horrible to your mother or to the mother of your girlfriend. Uh, this woman who's willingly sharing $2,300. No, I would never hurt them. But if your jam is you want to use your drugs and you're in trouble and some drug dealer's going to kill you and you need some help getting out of the hole, and oh yeah, you might even be able to do better than that, then you may very well be willing to put your mom into a dangerous situation to save your own skin. So if you carry these characteristics with you, and I'm not saying that these people do, but there's some curious behavior that they have been able to deal with in the past. So let's get into it and we'll see, what comes of it. All right. So I think that if I wanted to choose a name for this video, it would probably name it Drama, Trauma, and Chaos, right? And maybe have like three little stooges. Okay. Each of the three little stooges with a different demonstrating, becoming iconic for the three different internal states, that would talk about like the level, the depth of the integration between affection and cognition. So drama, trauma, and chaos is highly characteristic of someone with narcissistic personality disorder. People with narcissistic personality disorder, I think probably the best analogy, I think the one that I like the best, that is the most clear, is to think of a narcissist as an emotional vampire. That seems a little harsh. I get it, but it's actually accurate. So somebody with narcissistic personality disorder, they can come off as quite flamboyant. They can appear to be really confident, but or some can be rather uh, quiet but strong, stoic. Sometimes they'll appear to be quite stoic, and they'll give you the impression that they endure all the pain and chaos of everyone else because they're the only ones strong enough to endure it. Okay. And then when you get into the life story, then you're like, okay, but you seem to be the one creating all of your drama and chaos. So even though the narcissist might have like an outward, like their outward appearance, the primary mask that they're presenting to the world, um, it may look a bit different. Don't be misled. The process of narcissism is operating underneath. Okay. Now, and take just a second, and I want to really talk about this idea of a mask, because I think that people, how do I want to say this? I think that maybe sometimes people, they want narcissism to be simple. Like they want to say, tell me what it is, how do I recognize it? Am I one, or is my boyfriend one, or is my mother one? And the truth of the matter is, and the reason that we have so many different forms of narcissists being described in psychological literature is because, in fact, people are quite complicated, and depending on the environment that they're in, they change according to the needs of the environment. And so I think, rather than getting all bogged down in all these different forms of narcissism, all these different types of narcissism, and I think less, Dr. Carter, I think he's done a really fine job of parsing out the external extroversion slash introversion of the a particular narcissist and what that looks like to you. But I think that he would agree with me, that even though the face of the narcissist changes, the underlying process of narcissism is static. We know what they are. We know what drives them, and we understand what the goal is as they operate in their environment, regardless of what their external mask is. Now, for me, I talk about the narcissistic mask because that's sort of like our stereo. No, that is the literature classic explanation for the externalization of the personality that has been developed by the narcissist. Notice, I'm not saying it's the narcissist personality. No, it is the character that like a character in a movie. It's the character that the narcissist wants you to believe. It's not who they really are. They've spent a lifetime manufacturing a frontal impression of what they think you want them to be. And I've seen narcissists before that change according to who is in the room with them. And it's absolutely fascinating to watch. It doesn't even create animosity. It's just this sense as you watch them change depending on who is with them, who's watching them, who's talking to them. As you watch that, it just makes it so clear to you that it's so fake, that the persona that they're putting out there is so fake, right? And I think that a lot of people experience that with Amber Heard, that when she was up on the stand, she was so ingrained into this role of starlet, movie star, life of the party. I'm so great, and I'm going to be so gracious to you, that when it came time for her to play the role of victim, she just had not had time to cultivate that. That she kind of went through the motions, but it looked really, it looked really stilted and plastic. And it just, as opposed to, remember when that somebody said something about her being a victim, and she immediately jumped into character of, I am this strong, passionate, fighting lesbian woman, and how dare you accuse me of being a victim. She basically became Mira right in front of our eyes on the stand, because that was the role that she had cultivated in terms of this whole Hollywood group, right? But she had not really ever cultivated her role as victim, because she can't really, she is the victim, I think. I think internally, her feeling of being less than, recognizing she's a flawed individual, I think that is her reality. I think she does feel like a victim in her authentic self. And that is what she has cultivated the persona to hide behind, is she doesn't want you to see that victim. She doesn't want you to know that she feels weak and doesn't measure up to regular people, right? And so that's why, that's another reason why when they suggested that she was a victim, man, she stepped up and stepped into that I will kick your ass in a big Texas way. She jumped right into that role, in a shocking manner. But when it was time to talk about the abuse, when it was time to reveal to the world that she had been physically, emotionally, and sexually violated in a way that no one else could ever believe, well, then she struggled. She couldn't manage that. Let me hold this up. I forgot to do this before we got started. Okay. All right. So, um, I recently did a video on communal narcissist. And when I did that video, I brought in the idea of Amber Heard as communal narcissist, and the iconic, or the archetype, I think, for that would be the person who would say, "Oh, I gave it's my job to come in and do this great thing for all to benefit," right? And so her thing was that she gave her $7 million to charities. Now, she didn't give them to the charities that her friends had, which would have been real money. She chose two charities that would get her more promotion time, that newspapers would talk about it. And she actually even talked about that's what she was doing, was choosing charities that would get her noticed. So she really wasn't donating the 7 million out of the goodness of her heart. She was donating the 7 million to manipulate people into believing that she was a very good person. And she never gave any of the money. Okay. So she would, or her role that she played during the court TV deal would have been that of the archetype for communal narcissist. So we have multiple types of narcissist, and some of that is dependent upon the externalizing, the extroversion versus introversion of the person, and how they want their persona to be interpreted by the other person, by the rest of the world. I don't really talk so much about masks when I'm teaching this. I don't really talk so much about mask, even though that is our classic literature analogy. I think it's probably more accurate to talk about narcissistic mask as character actors, the role that they're playing. I think that's a bit more descriptive. For people that are not, that they don't have a very sophisticated connection to these people. The outward appearance changes. Think about Johnny Depp. Think about all the different roles that he's played, and how widely his appearance changes in them. But it would all kind of be the same manipulative person underneath who is trying to exploit another to get their own narcissistic supply. And people have different supply needs. Some people's supply, it's all about needing money. I need as much money as I can accumulate. The more money I have, that's the sign that I'm a real and worthwhile person. Some people's narcissistic supply is more of adoration and fame. The more people that know my name is a indication that I am a real person, that I'm a lovable person, that I am an acceptable person. I think a lot of people get into marriages um, it triggered by a bit of this whole narcissistic supply. Not that they are narcissistic, PD, but that we all hold a bit of this drive within us. Some researchers, theoreticians have called it just your regular esteem needs, right? But a lot of people, and we see this a lot in borderline PD, and that is that people that have little regard for themselves, women usually, who have little regard for themselves, and it's only through the validation of love, of validation of a man falling in love with them, a man choosing them for marriage, that when that man chooses them, then they can finally rest and go, okay, so I am lovable. I am desirable. I am, wanted. And I actually spend a lot of time in my work um, trying to get people to a point of, you don't need an external person to validate your own lovability. You don't need an external person to make you feel like you're okay and you're wanted and you're desirable. That comes actually from within you. It's just that when the man picks you, that's your cue. That's like your cue card that says, see, you have proof you're lovable. And then you can sit back into those esteem needs and say, I am lovable. And when you tell yourself you're lovable, then you feel lovable. People say you don't fall in love with a person. You fall in love with the way you feel when you're with that person. And that's sort of the height of the narcissistic demand, is if the narcissist is loving how they feel when they're with you, what you going to do when they're no longer loving how they feel when they're with you? Because that's when they're going to discard you. And you may ask yourself, well, what do they why do they love how they feel when they're with you? And usually a narcissist will gravitate. It's almost like they can pick, it's like they have a radar, right? And they just seem to recognize and hone in on that one empath in the room, right? The one thing that the narcissist is really lacking, which is empathy for other people. It's like they're hungry and thirsty for that. And so that one empath in the room, the one person who truly experiences a deep connection to another person without really even trying, it's like the narcissist picks up on that. And that's sort of what led me to this idea, that a narcissist is really an emotional vampire. They're really, when we talk about narcissistic supply, I look at it as, your life force. Okay. We can make it clinical and say, oh, they're looking for narcissistic supply. But if you're the one in the relationship with that narcissist, you very quickly begin to realize, uh-oh, they are sucking my life force from me. I am tired. I am weary. I can't do this anymore. I can't deal with the games. I can't deal with the double speak, the circular talk, the gaslighting, the manipulation and misleading. I just can't do it anymore. And they pick up on that. When you begin to get overwhelmed and you're just drained and you're pulling back, guess what they do? They got to fill you back up so that they can suck all that back out of you. And so then here come the flowers and here come all the pretty words. And we actually call that hoovering, like the old vacuum cleaner, sucking you back into the madness, right? Building up that feeling of goodwill and making you feel loved and making you feel wanted. And then once you're back in there, then the manipulation and the games begin. Now, at the very moment that you really begin, the damage is done, and that he has told you, or she has told you so many times what is wrong with you, that you have no friends, that people say mean things about you behind your back, that you look ridiculous, that when you're having fun, you look like a child. Sound familiar? When they have broken you down by just undermining you at every move, once you have broken down and you are now weeping and lost and feeling disconnected, well, that is when they develop disdain for you. And they dislike you, they have disdain for you because you're supposed to be there to build them up. And if they suck the life out of you and you don't have anything left to give, then you are of no use to them. And so you can get a true discard at that point. And that will be the best day of your life. That will be the best day in your relationship with that narcissist, is the day that that narcissist says, this person is weak. This person is no good. This person is not the person I thought they were. They are not my equal. You're a terrible person. I want you to stay away from me. You're a liar. You told me you were one thing, but just look at you. You're just a quivering, weak mess. You are not my equal. You don't deserve to be with me. You're not strong enough to be with me. What that really means is that there's not enough room in my world for both of us being weak and broken messes. And so when they truly discard you, you are on the road to, recovery. And that's a happy day. So reframe that negative thought. Um, one thing that we do see, and there's been books written about this and whatnot, but really it can be boiled down into a very simple couple of moments. And that is that if they check up on you, the narcissist will always feel a sense of ownership over you. It goes with that whole, that they're feeding off of you. Hold on, I just unplugged my computer just a second. Okay, sorry about that. Um, so they will always have a sense of ownership over you, and a lot of people hope and pray that they will move on to a new supply is what we say, but you and I know it's a new body that's got fresh blood in it. Um, and And so a lot of you right now are going, but wait a minute, my narcissist, um, my monster would discard me. And then just about the time that I would start doing well and start healing and feeling like myself again, they would come back in the picture and start all the love bombing. And, I would be foolishly sucked back into the madness. Well, that's not the forces of destiny drawing you together in this magical love, vortex. That is them checking over their property. And when they haunt your Facebook and other, social media, and they see that you're genuinely smiling again, and lost weight, and you're wearing pretty clothes, and you're, got a diploma where you've graduated from college, then they're like, oh, wow, look at there. And they're just basically smacking their lips because there's fresh blood. And that's why they come back. You eventually learn that if a couple of iterations of suck me dry, discard me, heal, and then they suck you back in again, they suck you dry, and they discard you, and then you suck you back in again, and they bleed you dry, and then they discard you, then eventually you go, wow, this is going nowhere. Why do I keep going back to him? Or why do I keep finding the same type of narcissist? Why am I doing this? And that's something, that's a good reason to find you a good psychologist. Okay. Because a good psychologist can help you figure that out and get you where you turn away from those kind of people and you go, oh, no, I know your type. Okay. All right. So let me play for you. Hold on. I got to put my headphones on. Okay. So I want to be, I have to take the love goddess and the chadster off the screen. Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, I hate it. It says present instead of share. It should say share. I don't like the whole present thing. Okay. Here we go. So I think for me, other than Scarlett O'Hara, I believe, Scarlett O'Hara is probably, she's an iconic narcissist that we love. Let's be honest. Miranda Priestley. There you go. She's it. Okay. She's our end girl. You know what I mean? So she is the archetype, I believe, for our modern day female narcissist. Now, make no mistake about it. Narcissists come in every size, shape, personality that there is. There are narcissists that do not play up their gender role. Okay. Even though typically, okay, this kind of gets confusing. Typically, we do expect that with narcissism, that there is sort of this over-identification with the gender role. Many female narcissists get these big boobage, implants, or they just really, they work really hard to draw attention to their sexuality. A lot of male narcissists will build up muscles and, that kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with trying to make yourself look nice. I think this is one of those areas that people struggle to understand what these archetypes look like, because you say, oh, well, if you wear makeup every day, you're such a narcissist. No. Healthy people enjoy presenting themselves in the best way possible, right? They want to wear clean clothes. They may have a certain type of clothing that enhances their body type. All of those things are they're healthy. It's okay to it's okay to enhance the way you look, but we're talking about an over identification. Um, yeah, and I'm just going to leave it at there because we do live in a fairly self-absorbed society. Um, Makeup is a multi-billion-dollar industry. The fashion industry is booming. People want to look good, right? And so we got to be careful. But it sometimes the people with the longest fake eyelashes in the room, you may notice there's a touch of narcissism there, or the really big implants. You may notice that there's something else happening there. They may be fairly shallow people, don't really seem to make much of a connection with people, that kind of thing. I don't want to make these broad general statements. I'm just kind of giving you an idea. But not all narcissists will over identify with their gender role. Sometimes their narcissistic need is to be seen as brilliant. A lot of people that feel really uh, bad about themselves and feel like they don't measure up to everybody else in the world are people that made bad grades when they were in school. They didn't learning was very difficult for them, and so they may actually cultivate an outward appearance of an uber intellectual, right? That they even though they did they barely finished high school, they got a couple of classes at community college, and then they never finished a degree of any type, but they will be the ones that will be using medical lingo. They'll try to do presentations that is something that they've never been trained in. They're just copying, parroting what they've seen on YouTube, internet websites, and they really don't have depth of knowledge to present an expert level of information. And so that sometimes it's about intellect, sometimes it's about money and worth. I'm talking about fiscal work management. No, bleh, capitalistic money. Sometimes it's about appearance. Sometimes it's about the level of pro-social behavior, like the communal narcissist who wants to convince people that they're the most loving, gifted, moral person in the room, all done for the greater good. In reality, no, that's just a tool they're using. I'll tell you another place where narcissism runs deep, and that is with religion. For some reason, narcissists have this uncanny ability to pick up on people that are pious, that they get a lot of respect from others, right? And so the narcissist will begin to quote the Bible, like they'll quote Bible verses, and they'll try to talk about, Psalms and whatnot. And they really don't believe anything they're saying at all. It's just manipulation. They're just tricking you into believing that they're this highly principled person that you should look up to and believe at all costs. No, regardless of their own bad behavior, regardless of how many people, how many enemies they have, and how many people, have said, hey, this person's lied about me and manipulated me and harmed me and stole money from me. Regardless, that if they quote the Bible, then they believe that you'll believe them. So it's not all about makeup, big boobs, and some narcissists work really hard to look very studious, and they wear the little horn rimmed glasses, and it's just all about whatever the weakness is that they're hiding beneath the surface, and that will drive what their outward character actor will present. and it's exactly like a movie character. It's just how it is. So let's watch my hero narcissist. I actually love Miranda Priestley. She makes me laugh, but I also am not dealing with her in real life because I fear had I had to deal with her in real life, I might bop her in the nose. So let's listen to her at work.
There's no one that can do what I do. And I'm not going to prove that girl that she sent me for the Brazilian layout. I asked for clean, athletic, smiling. She sent me dirty, tired, and paunchy. Please. It's just, I don't know, drizzling.
Okay, this is one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, The Devil Wears Prada. She's in Florida, and there is an actual hurricane, right? Like the hurricane is happening right now, and she has her assistant running all over New York City trying to get someone willing to fly an airplane into Florida to pick her up and fly her home. And so Miranda's on the phone and she's going, what is wrong? Why are people going crazy? It's just drizzling. So this actually is a perfect representation of that narcissistic entitlement, feeling special, that their rules don't apply to them. And I think we see that at work every day on YouTube, if you know what I mean.
Where are the belts for this strap? Why is no one ready?
Who's there? Who are you dealing with?
I'm sorry, what's your name? Oh, Liz. Oh, it's Liz.
No, get away from her. She's useless and unattractive.
You have no style or sense of fashion.
Well, I think that depends on what you're...
No. That wasn't a question.
I'm showing a lot of florals right now, so I was thinking I could
Florals for spring. Groundbreaking. Is it impossible to find?
You see that dismissive kind of, don't be so ridiculous. That thought is just stupid. We've seen that, haven't we? Think about it. That whole board, barely tolerating the things that people are saying on her YouTube channel, dismissive, literally interrupting someone in mid-sentence with a completely different topic, usually about her. That's what you're seeing.
The lovely, slender female paratrooper.
No.
Am I reaching for the stars here? Not really.
Oh, hi.
Did you fall down?
Lack of empathy, correct? Entitlement, out, just over the top entitlement. So Priestley comes striding in, of course, looking fabulous because she does. And she has zero disregard for the things that are on the desk. This is not her desk that she's throwing things on, but just drops it off, throws it. And in that action, she elevates her own power and her own status. She has basically covered up the work area with her things, which sends a message of, you are not needed, you are not important, and take care of my things. I can't be bothered. I'm too good to hang my own coat up. Okay. Again, we see that kind of thing in action on a YouTube channel. The making a determination which person should be able to have a YouTube channel, which person should not be able to have a YouTube channel, which person is having the right opinion about a crime or the wrong opinion of a crime. I got to be careful.
Smack your little head on the pavement. There's some reason that my coffee isn't here. Has she died or something? Hello.
Oh, thank God. You're there.
Excuse me?
I need to find you right away. It's got Japanese police.
I love it.
I thought that only the first assistant went to the benefit.
Only when the first assistant hasn't decided to become an incubus of viral plague. I said to myself, go ahead. Take a chance. Hire the smart fat girl.
No, I'm so sorry, Miranda. I actually did confirm last
Tales of
night.
your incompetence do not interest me.
Do I smell
freesias?
What? No. I specifically told them that.
I see freesias anywhere, I will be very disappointed.
Now, let me tell you what prefaced that moment of the freesias. So, her assistant has learned that there is an orchestrated behind the scenes effort to have Miranda Priestley removed from her magazine, right? And so her assistant, who has mistakenly thought that maybe they were developing a friendship, that she caught Miranda in a moment of weakness and she thought, oh, she's warming up to me. No. She did catch Miranda in a moment of weakness, and for that there will be hell to pay. That she found out that Miranda's husband was cheating on her and wanted a divorce, and she witnessed it. And so Miranda has to pay her back by taking her job from her and just trying to destroy her. So she hasn't quite gotten to that point yet that she's figured that out. And so when they go to Paris, she finds out that they're trying to remove Miranda as head of the magazine. And so she's been desperately trying to catch Miranda to tell her, wait, you're my friend. I don't want you to go into that meeting and get, blindsided. And here's what they're trying to do to you. Right? So in both of these instances, the whole dethroning Miranda Priestley, as well as catching the whole divorce thing before anyone else knew about it, catching Miranda while she was crying and whatnot. Together, those two things, Miranda knows as a narcissist, she knows that her assistant has seen the real her, that she's not larger than life, that she's not in control of all of New York City and the fashion industry at large, that she is at heart just a frail, fallible human being who has the same weaknesses that any other human being has. And rather than that being a bonding experience, it actually turns into a weapon, because Miranda cannot have anyone seeing her as weak, as a victim, as less than capable in controlling the whole industry. And so there's going to be hell to pay. And so, unfortunately, it's about to come raining down on her head. And she's in shock. The assistant is in shock because she's like, what the hell? I'm trying to be her friend. I'm trying to help her. And she's literally killing me. It's crazy. It is crazy.
That. Oh, I don't want that. This layout for the Winter Wonderland spread. Not wonderful yet.
You got the designs for your dress?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
I think it can be very interesting
No.
with
By all means, move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.
I was wondering,
You completely lost your mind.
I need to talk to you.
Do not disturb me.
The problem is, with that huge feathered headdress,
I always hire the same girl. Stylish, slender. I don't really care what anybody writes about me. However, that blue represents millions of dollars and countless jobs. And it's sort of comical how you think that you've made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when, in fact, you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room. from a pile of stuff.
Which is silly, right? Let's face it. That little speech that she gave, that really overinflated the importance of the fashion industry. Most of us are not going out and purchasing $3,000 Gucci blouses. Okay. But what that speech right there that she just did, that was the attempt to demonstrate the overinflated sense of self, that her role in the world is far greater than anyone else's, and she should be looked up to and revered for her role. And you and I that just get up and put our comfortable clothes on to go to work, she's nobody to us. She the people that do this whole fashion thing, the $50,000, $200,000 Hermes bags, we don't care. That doesn't matter, right? But for them, they really build themselves up that they're so important. But the reality is they're not.
Anybody else have anything I can possibly use? Antibacterial wipes, perhaps?
I couldn't do what you did to Nigel, Miranda. I couldn't do something like that.
You already did. To Emily.
Is there anything else I can do?
Your job.
The last time I was here, James was having this really cool party, and this is why you don't like people riding up in the elevator with you.
There you are, Emily. How many times do I have to scream your name?
Actually, it's Andy.
And if you don't have that Harry Potter book by then, don't even bother coming back.
So again, that was after the whole discovery that the husband was, getting a divorce from Miranda, and she's feeling sorry for Miranda. She wants to try to help Miranda and be Miranda's friend, but Miranda begins to, go for the jugular. And the only reason that she's going for the jugular is because, the assistant, Andy, saw her weakness. And so now she's got to reiterate for the assistant, don't underestimate me. There's no victim here. Kind of like what we heard Amber Heard say, and kind of like we heard a YouTube creator screech. All right. Let's see. I think I'll put, that's a bit movie, is it? Let's leave it there. That's kind of relaxing. Okay. Now then, so that is that's a good overview for what a narcissist, female narcissist might look like. There's 10,000 other examples, but you get the idea. They are decidedly selfish, of course, but you can't be misled by whatever their character actor is, whatever role it is that they're putting out there, whatever their mask is that they're wearing. There is no one standard narcissistic mask. There are many different masks depending on what their weakness is: money, love, fame, the need to be, subscriber numbers, whatever. But the narcissistic process that is driving the whole game is always the same. And it is that they are weak, they are scared, they know that they don't measure up to the rest of the world. And so they work very hard to construct an alternate reality. They work very hard to write a script that they can put out to the world to mislead the world and to convince the world that they're actually really competent, really educated, really smart, really beautiful, really lovable, really rich, name whatever their weakness is. They do tend to hone in on the empaths or the dependent type personalities in the room. And, this is where I come, this is what drives me to think of narcissists as emotional vampires, because they do tend to suck the life out of people as they're getting their own needs met, and they highly disregard the needs of others. There is at the core of narcissism the basic lack of empathy. It's a disregard of others. They don't have empathy for other people because other people just don't matter. These narcissists are so consumed by their own hunger. They're so consumed by their own weaknesses. They're so consumed by their own damages that they don't care how you were damaged. They don't care about your moment of weakness because they are just a walking scab. Everything about them is damaged, broken, less than, and it is a full-time job keeping their mask up, putting that persona out there that you would never guess just how small and childish that they really feel. A narcissist as a parent, somebody asked the question, what was the question? What is it like for children of narcissists? I think that's the way the question was worded. What is it like to be the child of narcissist? Well, so you could do a whole semester on that particular question. So let me just let me just answer in a really broad and general way. You've all heard the information about the scapegoated child versus the golden child. And that dynamic is actually the dynamic that most often will play out in a home with a narcissistic parent, right? So the narcissistic parent, and I did 3 years ago, I did a video on narcissist and echo, which is Greek mythology, right? Go back and listen to that video, because I took a lot of time with talking about the mythology, but I put it in daily actions of a criminal, to understand how that narcissistic influence, as well as the really powerful influence of echo, how that works to mold and change the children. It's not just the activity of the blood-sucking narcissist, but the partner of narcissist is usually someone who is very passive. They only really get really vocal when they're doing the bidding of the narcissist. And it's all about reassuring the narcissist of how great and how famous and how powerful and how wonderful and how beautiful and how principled and how rich and how perfect they are. And that's why they call it echo, is because the narcissist is consumed with themselves, and echo played the role of reflecting the narcissist back to himself or herself. Right? Okay. So that was a good video. It was a fun video. Well, not fun, but I felt like later on when I went back and looked at it, I thought, this is a pretty good video to even show a class, in terms of wanting to highlight how echo is very powerful in this dance with the narcissist. So when we talk about a narcissist parent, don't forget there's usually an echo parent as well. And sometimes the echo parent can do an awful lot of damage. For sure, we know the narcissist parent can too, but the echo parent can sometimes really be the one that creates the biggest lifelong damage for the child. It is in this narcissistic family that you see a golden child and the scapegoat, and they serve critical roles for the narcissist. without the golden child and the balance of the scapegoat, then the family is like a solar system that is out of balance. And so as the more golden one child is, the worse the scapegoat child has to be, again, for balance. Now, the golden child serves a really important function, that they are there to be the ideal embodiment of the narcissistic parent. So basically, mini me. Okay. So if you're a female narcissist, you're more likely to choose a female child as being the golden child, unless there's something notably different. It may be, if the narcissistic mother really valued athletics, it may be that she actually would choose a male child as her golden child if he were more likely to excel in athletics, right? Or if you had a narcissist parent who was an uber intellectual, a hyper, a really accomplished intellectual, then that parent would be very, very frustrated if their child had a learning disability. And so they may ridicule that child, and they may call that child lazy, rather than actually recognizing, no. Learning disabilities are real, and they're not the effect of laziness, but rather a difference in how the neurological system is established. So the golden child is the embodiment. They are the ideal of the narcissistic need. So if the narcissistic mother believes that she was cheated out of being popular in high school, she was cheated, she didn't get to make cheerleader, or she didn't have many friends, then she would take this young female and mold her and push her and turn her into the perfect cheerleader, the perfect popular girl, the perfect hair, the perfect skin. I've seen children, 13, 14, 15 years old, taken to plastic surgeons, all for the need of the mother to have the perfect child. Okay. The scapegoated child serves as the balance to the female ideal, or the ideal embodiment of the narcissistic parent. The scapegoated child, in order to be able to take one child and turn them into perfection in the eyes of the narcissist, there has to be some way, because that is only a child, because that's only a human being, and all human beings make mistakes, and all human beings have weaknesses, and no human being is perfect. Something has to be done about the golden child who, gets caught drunk at school. You can't accept that the ideal embodiment of the narcissistic parent could ever accept their little drunk cheerleader, right? And so that is the role of the scapegoated child. The scapegoat in the family has to take responsibility for all the mistakes and weaknesses of the ideal, the golden child. So if the golden child gets caught drunk at school, then the scapegoat child gets grounded and gets yelled at, because it was the scapegoated child to make the golden child stop drinking. It's the scapegoated child's responsibility, because they didn't call the parents and say, hey, my sister is getting drunk at school, so that the narcissist mother could come running to the school and hide the drunk daughter as she gets her off the campus so nobody sees her, and then it never happened. Fairly sick, right? And it happens every day, I promise. Okay, so that I'm not going to go into it any more than that. Obviously, what I've described, it's damaging as hell to both the scapegoated child as well as the golden child. I have had people say, "Oh, I would rather be the golden child than the scapegoated child." And I'm going to tell you right now, no, you don't. You don't, don't want to be the kid whose job it is to be the perfect version of their narcissistic mother or father. That is a burden that no human being can carry. None. The scapegoated child generally will make their exit. They'll reach an age where they look around and they go, "This is not normal. This is a sick relationship. My dad or my mom are toxic. Color me gone." And they get out and they find a good psychologist and they work hard to become healthy and happy, all on their own 2 feet. They establish those boundaries and they don't ever get sucked back in the madness again. The golden child grows up and they're hungry and they're needy for that acceptance. And they spend their whole life trying to get the approval and the acceptance of the narcissistic parent. And guess what? Just like Miranda Priestley, that acceptance never comes. There's always something that you can improve if you are the golden child. All right. And trust me, if you grew up in a family like this, if you're dealing with something like this on your own, maybe an ex-husband, ex-wife, or whatever, there are many psychologists and really great therapists who are certified to work in what is called dialectical behavior therapy. It is an empirically validated treatment, and it works. It gives people back their lives. I often say to people, like counselor, psycho PhD students or whatever, people that are, interns learning how to work, do therapy and whatnot. I often say to them that really and truly, if you get trained in dialectical behavior therapy, it's fairly easy to see that, dialectical behavior therapy is really just some really, really great um, methods of living. It's good for anyone. You don't have to be borderline to benefit from dialectical behavior therapy. It's just healthy, it's smart, it's good, and if you learn it and you learn the skills, you learn the processes, then you just turn out being this logical, rational, mindful human being who's just living their best life, not interfering with other people, not trying to subjugate the world for your own needs, but just being, authentic and calm and loving and happy. It's great principles. And if you guys would like, some information on potential books or workbooks or whatnot, yeah, I can tell you there's some really great workbooks to help you sort of work through that. You're really high functioning, you're doing well, you're not having all these big psychological problems or legal problems, that you just kind of want to do better, be happier or whatever. There are some workbooks out there that are not quite so clinical. They're not quite like if you're doing Marshall Linehan's version. She is the person that the author of the whole DBT thing and has generated by far the greatest amount of empirical research on outcome studies for DBT. Then it is actually a really intensive, regimented treatment. But you're talking about using a treatment for people that have serious personality disorders. So it is a very intensive, goal-directed process of learning and living. You're reprogramming your brain essentially while you're learning effective coping skills and whatnot. In that case, it is quite regimented. However, like any great therapy, there are people that come by later and they take bits and pieces of this EVT and they break it off into sort of a self-help type of idea. And so I know which workbooks are really geared toward just good, healthy reading at home, working through some little questions that can kind of make you feel a little bit stronger, help you define and make some decisions, develop coping skills. Outside of that model, that intensive model of DBT that requires, the group work and it's if you've ever been exposed to DBT, Marshall Linehan is a genius, but anyway, there are some self-help resources now growing out of DBT that can be highly effective. And if you're interested, let me know and I'll give you a couple ideas for books. Let's see, what did I want to talk about next? Which part do I want to do? How about, okay, so also, hold on, let me get a drink of water because I hate when people get dry mouth. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is empathy. And I'm going to start talking about empathy by talking about this connection or disconnect between narcissism, sociopathy, which is when we talk about sociopathy, we're essentially talking about antisocial personality disorder, and then psychopathy. Okay, so we're talking about narcissism, sociopathy or ASPD, and psychopathy. All of these have elements of problems with empathy. Now, empathy is it's rooted in a neurological ability for connecting emotionally with others. The precursor for empathy is hopefully the bonding that an infant has with their primary caregiver between the ages of 0 and 12 months. Now, when a small child, when they are able to, when the parent is responsive to the child's innate instinctual devices to get the attention of the parent, if the parent provides that attention, if the parent is responsive to the child, then the child and the parent develop what is called an attachment, and the child experiences the lesson on bonding. The child learns what bonding is, and bonding is the precursor to empathy, later in life, correct? So if all of this is happening between the ages of 0 and 12 months, and the child has instinctual, innate tools for getting an adult to respond, and that comes in the way of crying, it comes in the way of cooing and babbling and looking cute. It's one of the reasons why their eyes are so big and their nose is so tiny. It makes them basically look like a tiny little doll, right? And that evokes a sense of joy. It gives, to look at a newborn, it instinctively makes a person want to touch them, want to interact with them. And babies have a way of looking at you. And some people have even tried to make this connection between babies' eyes being so blue when they're born, and it's mesmerizing because it's such an intense blue. It's almost like gems, and it causes people to really stare at their eyes. Correct? The eyes being really like the largest features on the infant's face, and that people will tend to stare at the eyes of the baby rather than the nose or the mouth or the ears. Stare at the eyes, and that then promotes what we call sustained prolonged attention. And if you've never experienced sustained prolonged attention, it's sort of fun to do it with someone that you're not really intimately close with. If it's just like a coworker or whatever, and you say, okay, my weird psychologist said, we got to sit here, we got to look at each other eye to eye without looking away for 5 seconds, and then notice the internal sensations. And most people can't make it 5 seconds. I think if I remember the research, I think the longest is like 1.7 seconds for unrelated people. So it's very difficult to make sustained eye contact with someone. You feel like you've got to withdraw. You feel like you got to shield your eyes. That it's too intensive. It's a weird sensation. It's too much. It's a strange experience, but it's fun to do. We used to do it at like slumber parties, to see who could hold the gaze longest, and when we'd laugh because both people are like, it's so weird, I can't do it. But for babies and mothers, newborn babies and mothers, they actually hold sustained prolonged eye contact for an enormous amount of time. They can look at each other without blinking, without looking away, for up to 5-6 minutes, compared to only 1.6 seconds with, like a store clerk. So when a baby and a mother are looking at one another with that sustained eye contact, both of their brains are going crazy. The electrical impulses during that sustained prolonged eye contact, the brain is just partying. Like, it is loving it. It is freaking out. It is like, this is so pleasurable and great and wonderful. And that is this intense foundation for empathy. So this is a lot to talk about in one setting. I'm going to try to streamline it a little more, because I feel like, I want to tell this or I want to tell that. And it's just, it's a lot. Okay, so empathy, bonding between up to a year old, bonding lays the groundwork for the development of empathy. And empathy is at the heart of what goes wrong in narcissism, sociopathy, and psychopathy. The researchers in this area, they will tell you there's basically 3 forms of empathy. It's global empathy. Well, okay, so I like Martin Hoffman, his model of empathy development, just because it's consistent with my own theoretical orientation, and so it just makes sense to me. And he recognizes 3. There are other models. He's not the only one with the model of empathy development, but it works for me. Global empathy, egocentric empathy, and empathy for others. If I go into detail on all this, I will be here for days. So I'm just gonna move on from that. If it sounds interesting, then you can go ahead and read about it. Now then, with Hoffman's 3 the 3 classes, 3 developmental stages. 3 developmental stages. Sorry, my headphones popped off my head. With Martin Hoffman's 3-stage developmental model of empathetic development, it all grows on the integration of affection and cognition. So I am basically, my theoretical orientations, basically, I'm a cognitive psychologist. I believe we are who we are because somewhere we learned to do it. I think people that are rewarded are going to it is an increased likelihood that they're going to engage in that behavior again in the future. And if you experience punishment, then there is an increased likelihood that you will not engage in that behavior in the future. And I think that's how we all become who we are at its most molar level. And so Martin Hoffman, he is the same in terms of looking at a maturation development, social developmental type of model to include the development of empathy. So through as you look at information process, you can't look at empathy as separate from cognition. Empathy is another element of higher cognition. It affection being the body's natural constellation of neurotransmitters that result in a feeling of pleasure that is based on human interaction or interaction with another living creature. That is affection. And then cognition is just higher thought, more sophisticated type of thought beyond the brain stem. Thought that exceeds simply heart beating or even your eyes blinking. And so empathy is a very sophisticated level of cognition that includes varying levels of the integration between affection, which is a constellation of neurotransmitters, chemicals in your brain, that is working in tandem with higher thought processes, what we call cognition. Okay, so in the beginning, in the beginning, when the child is very young, the child experiences an array of neurotransmitter changes, and it is experienced as pleasure, physiological pleasure. But if the parent is highly responsive to the needs of the child, that the child cries and the adult appears, the child coos and the parent smiles, then that sensation of pleasure, it gets matched with their developing sense of personal agency of, aha, I have the power to control this adult human. All I got to do is make a sound and the smiling mommy face appears. That makes me competent, and I love that. I don't love the mommy. I love the way I feel when I am with the mommy, in essence. Okay? So in the beginning, it's pure affection all on its own. But through higher conditioning, then thought becomes intermingled with affection, and that becomes known as empathy. All right? Okay. I know it's a lot more complicated than that, but you get what I'm saying. So, empathy, it develops in a way that is parallel to social cognitive development. The awareness that the child is an individual who has the ability or does not have the ability to affect others in their environment. In the beginning, a small child doesn't think that they're separate from the parent. They believe that they won't exist if the parent leaves their side. But eventually, through a small succession of events, the child learns that not only can they be separate from the parent and still survive, but there are other adults around who will take over the role of the parents when the parent's at work. And so they become very competent in managing even relationships like at daycare or whatnot, if they have a great daycare. As they go through the stages from simple to most advanced, what they learn in the earliest stages gets moved forward into the more advanced stages. So by the time they come out through this maturation process combined with social learning, they come out on the other side with high level of mature, sophisticated thought that, basically empathy, the emotions, the attachment related to cognition. Empathy, a person becomes competent and they can use their empathy to pick up on the demands of the immediate environment and situation, and they feel a parallel to the feelings and affections of the other people in the room. This goes for finding a parallel to what people are thinking, experiencing a parallel of moral principles, even like a parallel to behavior. We've all kind of seen these people that they're generally fairly calm people, rational, but then they go to a party with a party animal who's this wild, gregarious, kind of wild and crazy fun guy. And suddenly the quiet, studious, rational person is now dancing on top of the tables. Not because they want to, but because by watching the party animal and smiling with the party animal as the party animal engages in these antics, then the person sort of, through empathy, they kind of lose their own reserved, calm approach, and they begin to act through in parallel with the person that they're experiencing this empathetic connection with. Okay. So according to Martin, the first stage of empathy development is called global. It's during the first stage of life. Kid doesn't know that he's separate from, the caregiver. And, eventually they begin to pick up on differences. During this global phase where they believe they're the same as the adult that's caring for them, so this is kind of, we're gonna be so long here if I go into all this. Okay, I'm gonna go past this. I'm not gonna say that. Okay. All right. Okay, so phase one is global empathy, and that's basically that stage of development where the child thinks they're connected, that they're one entity with the parent. Then they move to the second stage, which is egocentrism. And egocentrism is where the child is aware of others, and they begin to realize that even though they may not be experiencing an unpleasant situation, they begin to recognize that another child could be having an unpleasant experience. This used to actually be a point of argument among the researchers in this area. Piaget really fell short on, oh my God, we're going to be here all night if I keep doing this. Piaget underestimated the cognitive sophistication of small kids and overestimated the abilities of older people. An egocentric child, a child who's going through the stage of egocentrism, according to Martin Hoffman, there are people that would disagree, but according to Martin Hoffman's model, if they're working through this egocentrism and they're beginning to recognize that they are not connected to the rest of the world, that what they feel is not necessarily what others are feeling, then you can see like a small child, 10, 11-month-old child at daycare, they have their blankie with them, and another child begins to cry because they miss their mom. Then the child with the blanket might go over and give their blanket to the child that's crying for their mom. That the little kid realizes, hey, my friend is having an unpleasant experience. My blanket always makes me feel better. Therefore, I think my blanket will help another child feel better. Now, Piaget would have laughed Martin Hoffman out of the room. out of the building, off the campus. Piaget would say, "You are so ridiculous. Children are not capable of that." But we do know, in fact, they are. And anybody that's worked in Montessori, they know that. Children as young as a year old are definitely capable of having, an empathetic reaction to another child. So the third stage is, this awareness, what I described. And this usually happens sometime between 18 months and 2 years, that the child recognizes, hey, they're having an experience completely separate from mine, and I might be able to sort of help out, and make them feel better. Fourth stage is, the final stage. It's the end of childhood, and the kid feels that, not only are others' perceptions the reactions of the moment, but also the kid might have just a broad general difference in philosophy that could change the way they react to something. And I don't know, we don't have time to go into the whole, I don't want to go into the whole thing of it, but you get my point. So empathy is not something simple. It's not something that you either have it or you don't. Empathy is a stage-like progression of accomplishment. And so you do have people that may have a little bit of empathy. It may be a bit childlike, but it's there. Maybe they notice that somebody's unhappy, but they don't make any attempt to help that person feel better. Hold on a second. Now, in narcissism, that's why you get narcissists are also often described as quite immature emotionally. They're very immature emotionally. They employ tactics of a small child to get their emotional needs met. So let's say a narcissist gets upset because they didn't get the birthday present that they wanted. They got some variation of what they asked for. Well, that narcissist will experience that as a huge devaluing experience. Like if the narcissist says, hey, I want what? For my birthday, I want a tanzanite ring with diamonds all the way around it in white gold. That's what I want for my birthday. And the husband goes to buy the tanzanite with diamonds and white gold. And Zales said, oh, sir, I'm so sorry. Do you have time for us to order it? Because all we have here is a tanzanite with diamonds in rose gold. And the husband says, well, it's $200 more, but that's okay because I love my wife and I want her to be happy. Let me go ahead and have it in rose gold. I mean, it's actually a better ring. It's more expensive. And I think she's going to love it. So let's don't worry. I'm willing to pay the extra $200 because I love her so much. And wrap it in your best wrapping paper, in the prettiest bow. And I love my wife so much. And so the husband takes the ring and goes home. So then the narcissistic woman, the husband not knowing that the whole reason that the woman wants a blue tanzanite with diamonds and white gold is not because she knows anything about gemstones or values jewelry, but that she's trying to remake her image to be like someone else that she knows. That she's trying to make everybody think she's as good as this other person. So she's mimicking this other person. She's trying to make herself look like this other person, right? The husband thinks she just loves jewelry and wants a beautiful tanzanite ring. And so he actually buys a better quality of ring than what she's asked for. But her motivation is not at all, as a narcissist, about the love of the jewelry. It's 100% about creating an image, right? And so he comes in, he gives her the gift, and he's expecting that she's going to be happy and she's going to say thank you, and I'm such a blessed woman, and my husband is my friend, and man, I've got a good life, right? That's what happens in a normal house. So she opens the ring and she throws it across the room in a fit of anger and begins crying and says, "You don't love me. How dare you? I can't believe this. I'm filing for divorce," yada, yada. Now, I went a little bit over the top. It could actually turn into she could open it and see the ring and just go, oh, well, thank you. And then do the silent treatment. And that's the new set of misery all by itself. And then the husband who thinks he's done well is going, okay, well, she's not happy and I don't know what I did wrong. Let me try. Oh, honey, what's wrong? How can I help you? And so these games into you. It's immature. It's childish. It's like a small child. Whether she has a temper tantrum and throws the ring across the room because it doesn't look like the ring of the person she's trying to imitate, or she can, maybe if she's a little more advanced emotionally, she realizes that she shouldn't really throw it because it wouldn't look good, but she's going to do the whole silent treatment. She's going to be a whiny baby. And then once she's got his attention, then she's like, but I wanted one in white gold. This won't work. It doesn't look like the ring I need it to look like. I need a white one. Please, can we take it back and order one that's in white gold? I really need the one that's in white gold. If you loved me, you would do the one in white gold. And the husband's standing there thinking, you're insane. He doesn't voice it because there would be hell to pay. But he's looking at it and he's going, she's crazy. This woman is out of her mind, crazy. Okay, honey, sure. This is not a problem. We can take it back. We'll have to order the white gold. It's going to take a couple of weeks for it to come in. I don't want to wait a couple of weeks. I want the one with white gold. It doesn't look right if it's not white gold, because the lady she's trying to imitate has one that is white gold. You see my point? So the empathy, the description that narcissists often come across as being immature, it's really related to the immaturity of their level of empathetic development. If they got stuck back in one of the lower stages of development, that they can't really reconcile the parallel nature of the processing. I'm looking at my outline. Required level of empathy, antisocial behavior. Okay, antisocial behaviors. So narcissism is it's a false front. And there's varying levels of empathy. And there is always a level of antisocial behavior. And the reason for that is that the only thing that matters is that the narcissist has some needs. They're hiding their own frailties, they're hiding their own weaknesses, and they're doing it by mirroring another person. They look for a model and they say, I want to be just like this person because other people seem to accept them. And so I have to dress like this person. I have to act like this person. I have to be like this person. And sometimes, they have to exploit others to make that happen. Now, if their damage is that they need money to feel like a good human being, If the growing bank account and the development of, riches is what they're really after to feel good about themselves, then the exploitation of others, the fraud and scam, that becomes a way of life. And each time they're able to separate an unsuspecting victim from their money, they feel more relevant. They feel more powerful. They feel more important. We got a whole lot of that going on YouTube. You know what I mean? Tearful, crying jags about how your loss has been far worse than anybody else's loss is very often met with people dropping hundreds of dollars in super chats, complaining that, the storm came and knocked out, your whole town's electricity, and you didn't have any income, can be met with thousands of dollars of super chat from unsuspecting people. Our town was knocked out for 4 days and we didn't get to work. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, all you got to do is go and look at the number of hours this person was actually working during that 4-day period. And they didn't miss a beat in terms of their YouTube post, which is their job. And yet, through their mouth, they say, oh, I was out of work for 4 days. And people just did it without thinking. That's exploitation, stealing, scamming, fraud, if you will. It sounds ugly and it sounds nasty. But what if you're the widow whose husband passed away 15 years ago and you're disabled and you don't have a way to make money from home? And so you're strictly living on his Social Security and you don't have any available extra money, and you just sent your grocery money for the week to a woman who's claiming she did not work for 4 days because there was no electricity, but she has a generator and she was online as much as she had ever been. Exploitation. It harms people. It is a crime. All right. And so the way that empathy the way that empathy comes into play in this type of exploitation or whatever online is, remember what I said earlier, there are people that can conceive of fraud and exploitation or stealing, but they, because of empathy, because of this parallel experience of, well, if someone stole money from me, how would I feel? Well, I wouldn't like it. It would hurt me. I wouldn't be able to pay my electricity bill. And so even though they could conceive of a plan to steal from another person, they don't have the ability to actually execute the plan to exploit or defraud another. If you are high in narcissism, it's likely that you're quite low in empathy. And so not only can you conceive of the ability to defraud another person, take their money from them, you also have the ability to do it. And if you're really bad, not only do you do it, but if you're successful, that makes you feel really great about yourself. You feel like you are smarter than the poor saps that gave you their $100 of grocery money. You look down on those people that send you those super chats as you lie and cry, and they're sending super chats out of love, and you look at them and you think, stupid, you idiots, you're so dumb. You just hand over your money for what? Because I pretend like I'm crying for a little while. Suckers. Yeah, we've seen that happen. All right. So that's a bit of the whole empathy thing related to the ability to actually commit fraud or scam or whatever. Um, with sociopathy and psychopathy, because this is something that often comes up in conversation, and I think probably it's really hard to parse that out just in everyday relationships. I do think that researchers spend an awful lot of time trying to delineate each of these categories as distinct variables for their research. Um, but I don't think there's a lot of utility in the layman to really kind of get down in the bushes to parse it out. But I'll just do it really fast because it's really not that complicated. Well, I mean, it is complicated when you're measuring it, but the differences are academically are notable. Psychopaths are born. Psychopathy is there's a neurological disconnect. There's physiologically there's organic damage, right? So the amygdala is not doing its job, basically. So there's something wrong, and the connection between emotions and behaviors is not there. It's just that clean cut. The emotion between a behavior and the resulting emotion, it just doesn't happen. Jeffrey Dahmer is a perfect example of a psychopath. He could do these things. Didn't really bother me much. I mean, he cried in the immediate, but a lot of clinicians believe that he's crying for himself out of fear. That a true psychopath really won't even experience much fear. But remember, when I took the time to go through Martin Hoffman's psychosocial development of empathy. And the reason I did that was to help you understand the difference between narcissism, psychopathy, and sociopathy. You're talking about a spectrum of empathy, that in some conditions there's a lot more empathy, and in some of these conditions there's far less empathy. And definitely with psychopathy, we generally expect the psychopath is not experiencing corrective emotion. They don't care. It's like a shark. If a shark is hungry, they're going to eat, even if it's a human being. If a lion decides to have sex, he's going to jump up, have sex, and he's going to lay back down and go to sleep. He's without any concern, right? So with psychopathy, it's born, I'm of the opinion, I ascribe to the school of thought that they're born. It's not really a question of nature versus nurture, because there is something wrong physically with the brain. With sociopathy, though, that is where you do get a nature versus nurture argument. In sociopathy, there are emotions, corresponding emotions with behavior. Now, often it's the wrong damn emotion. Like you walk up to somebody and spit on them, and then you laugh because you think it's funny. Most people would be horrified if somebody got spit on, right? You'd be like, oh my God, that's awful. You can't do that. But with somebody who is a sociopath or antisocial personality, then they might think that's funny. Serial killers that have a sexual excitement related to the kill, they got an awful lot of this sociopathy. They're getting joy out of exerting pain and suffering on another person. Sadists are sociopaths. Their emotional response is backwards, upside down. It's wrong. Okay. And then with narcissists, you're not really in this question of, do you have the ability to experience corrective emotion or not? Are you experiencing corresponding emotions, or are they, backwards emotions. The narcissist, it's more about, yes, they have emotions, and their level of empathy, the development of empathy may be quite rudimentary and childlike. Um, and the more childlike or non-existent that empathy is, the higher the level of narcissism. As empathy grows, you see less narcissistic type of behaviors, less exploitation and that kind of thing. So with narcissism, it is not a question of whether they have emotion or not. They do, but the emotion is quite self-serving. All of their emotion is saved for themselves. It's they're hyper focused internally, and they're out for their own satisfaction. They're out for their own narcissistic supply. They're not going to waste any time trying to make you happy. They got their hands full trying to make themselves happy. Right? Okay. And yes, all psychopaths are narcissistic. All psychopaths, and I think to some element, sociopaths, it is all about looking out for number one, what they can get for themselves. All right. But not all narcissists are psychopaths. A lot of narcissists have glee and happiness and joy when they harm another person. And I've seen that on YouTube. I have seen on YouTube a person engaging in the public humiliation and shame of another person, calling another person a pedophile, reading documents for a guy, a legal documents, arrest warrant for a guy. And the guy, it wasn't even the right guy. The guy they said that it was about, it wasn't even about him. And yet this woman took great glee, had great joy, destroying the reputation of this subscriber, smiling. I'm talking about giddy with happiness at being able to inflict that level of emotional damage. And she used plausible deniability to overlook the fact that she knew damn well that wasn't about that guy, her victim. But she said, oh, well, I thought it was. I thought they looked a little bit alike, which is a perfect game of the narcissist, is they like to use plausible deniability. They'll ask their friend to make a call to CPS or to a professional licensing board. They'll say, call on this woman, make an ethics complaint about this professional. I don't care if it's a lie, make it anyway. And then she'll sit there and say, you'll never be able to connect me to calling in to the licensing board. Never. That's just a tool of a narcissist. So these are also the scamming, the slander, character assassination. This is right up there with scamming and fraud. And these are antisocial behaviors. These are the acts of psychopathy. And so now you're beginning to see, as we get into all this, you're beginning to see how it is that narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and borderline personality disorder, how these conditions can share overlapping diagnostic features. So often if you read a testing report, a psych evaluation, you'll often see a diagnosis that looks something like narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial features. And what that means is they satisfied the diagnostic criteria for narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, but they did not fulfill all of the diagnostic criteria for antisocial but definitely showed antisocial behaviors, antisocial tendencies, things like character assassination, things like fraud. All right. So, drama, trauma, and chaos of the narcissist is something that boils down to, think about Miranda Priestley. It boils down to some really simple, really specific elements that are easily seen in whatever form. And that is, first of all, a grandiose and overinflated sense of self, lacking the appropriate level of empathy, engaging in the exploitation of others, even to the point of harming others, committing slander, intentionally trying to ruin their businesses for their own selfish need. That if an attorney takes the case to help someone who's had a crime committed against them, then a narcissist might intentionally try to harm the attorney's firm by reporting them to an ethics board when there was no proof, no evidence at all that there's been any sort of ethics violation. That the only reason that that person would want this person to be this attorney to be reported to the ethics board is strictly 100% to punish them for taking the case of their victim. So, grandiose, overinflated sense of self, some level of shortcoming in empathy, the exploitation and harm of others for their own narcissistic supply, presenting themselves with an excessive level of self-focus to the point that they're not even really capable of having a proper conversation where the conversation appropriately moves from one person to the next in a fulfilling and polite manner. People that are very high in narcissism, they just can't handle the repetitive type of give and take that a normal conversation has. Their favorite topic is themselves. If you are not willing to engage in a conversation that is always about them, you will ultimately be discarded and devalued. You are no use to them if you don't want to sit and talk about them for hours. They are their favorite topic of conversation.